Today's episode of In the Trenches is brought to you by System 12 Guitar Method. Sign up today at ryanroxie.com.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello, and welcome to another episode, a special episode of In the Trenches. I am your host, Ryan Roxie. How you doing? As everybody files into the live chat, we do appreciate you showing up, especially on our YouTube official channel, which is Ryan Roxie Official. If this is your first time coming here, just hit that subscribe button right there. And if you are listening to us on any of the audio broadcasts, we do appreciate it. We really do, whether it's Spotify or Apple, any of those, we love it. But we want you over at our YouTube official channel because then you can see our faces. You can see us talking. And of course, you could be part of the live chat that we have going on right now. So you can see from the smile on my face, I'm excited today because we have a special episode of In the Trenches. We have one of the all-time OGs of one of heavy metal's most iconic bands. I'm talking founding member, all right? There's a certain energy that these guys have when they're a founding member. It's unique. After all, they know all the legendary stories because they helped create them. They know all the classic songs because they friggin' recorded them. So here to talk about all things Judas Priest past and KK's Priest future, especially the new release that might be out as you're watching this or coming out shortly. It's Sermons of the Sinner. That's the name of the album from KK's Priest future. Welcome into the trenches, guitarist KK Downing. Hello, KK.
Hey, Ryan. Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Real cool to be with you.
Well, it was great to write that intro because you are the original OG, man. You're the original gangster, man. You were there from the very, very beginning.
Yes, some years and miles on the clock, Ryan, that's for sure.
Well, you look great. You look great. You're gods of metal. You obviously are a metal. I am rock and roll, and this is Rock and Roll Church. But you know what? I do not have KK's Priest on the back of my shirt, but you seem to have some Alice Cooper on the back of your shirt because we figured out before we started taping that we played on the same show. There it is.
Yeah, what year is that, Ryan?
Oh my God, 2004, something like that. Was that Bologna?
Is it 2004? You can see it. No.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
See, these are the type of things that you're missing. If you're only listening to us on an audio platform, folks, you got to get into the Ryan Roxie Live YouTube channel and Ryan Roxie Official. So there we go. We're going to run things a little bit different. I want to run things by topic because I know your time is important and I want to get a lot of information in a short amount of time if that's possible. And of course, out of the gate, because everybody knows where you come from and where you are right now with KK's Priest, I want to get the word out about the new album. That's either by the time they watch this, it's already out, or will be released shortly. Sermons of the Sinner. This is the new album that you've put together. Out of the gate, where did the title come from, and what was the inspiration behind it? Are you the sinner?
Could be. In a lot of people's eyes, I think I am, so it's very, very ambiguous, the whole thing, that could be me in the cloak, or, it could be a demon in the cloak, or maybe I am the demon, I don't know, but yeah, obviously lots of people might think it relates to the song The Sinner. Obviously lots of people see me wailing the guitar about, doing long-winded kind of improvised solos, doing that, having loads of fun. Maybe some people, I think I just want to kind of squash the idea that I am actually a sinner and maybe I'm a pretty good guy, really, deep down, I guess my exit from Priest in 2010, I think there's lots of misinformation going about of how all of that happened. And so some people, look at me maybe as the sinner, but so the sermons that I've produced now will explain everything to everyone. And,
okay, Kay, you're very much welcome to confess your sins here today in the trenches. We applaud it.
It's Ryan's podcast. No, I think I'll let the album do that for me, really. But the album's so full of emotions and messages, and it's all about rejoicing this love of this great music that we've, that's come about through this evolution throughout the decades. Ryan, I know you've been there. Alice has certainly been there, with us on the long journey. But it's quite something that's been created, and we've obviously made a lot of good friends along the way. Obviously, all of the fans are very good friends. All of us guys in different bands. We've lived a life together and journeyed together. So Sermons of the Sinner is, it's a compilation of, I said, lots of emotions, mixed emotions, lots of things. A couple of warnings as well, that maybe we have to put a red flag up that, maybe our treasured music may be in a little bit of jeopardy, because us dinosaurs, we're not going to be here forever, Ryan, right?
No, there's definitely a change coming. It's storm a brewing, if you will. And
so I touch on that subject actually in the song Sermons of the Sinner, where, to keep this wonderful thing alive, that's being created, this wonderful style of music that actually, and I'm not sure about you, Ryan, but certainly Alice, we remember being back in the 60s as teenagers, and none of this existed, heavy metal, heavy rock, hard rock, even
pioneers.
Rock didn't exist back then, when we first started going. And I do tell the story for the first, how many years? 6 years. Yeah, that's it. In that band, we were playing songs and nobody really knew how to define it. So we couldn't get a record deal and we couldn't get gigs, to be fair. It was quite tough because
it was definitely tough. You were literally in the trenches when you guys started for, I'd say, the first 8 years or so. I'm going to go on to that when I reach on my next topic, but I'm still hyped about the new album because I want to get people to get aware of Sermons of the Sinner. I want everyone to basically find out about KK's Priest lineup, because I know that you have Tim Ripper Owens is singing on this one as well. So you have definite history with Ripper as well. And who else is in the band? And talk about the recording process of how you made this record through these very tumultuous times.
Yeah, well, obviously, Ripper was definitely the first port of call. Obviously, we worked together, for a long period, and Tim so graciously stepped in to save, Judas Priest for a long period, almost a decade, and we're very grateful to him, for doing that for us. But so I gave Ripper. Everybody knows what a great singer he is, but also how dedicated he is, in the metal world, and how revered he is in the metal world. And I recruited a younger guitar player. When I say younger, he's easily half my age. So there's some new blood. There's some new blood in the band.
Everyone's younger than us these days, KK.
So that's good. But I've known AJ Mills. We grew up in the same area, even though he's much younger. But I've known him. He was in a band that I helped do a couple of albums with called Hostile. So, and he's now very much like, he may have started out as an understudy, to me, but now obviously, as people will hear, we're quite similar in ways, and obviously we bounce off each other and trade off solos like there's no tomorrow. So that's really exciting. And unfortunately, I did play a show with AJ and with Ripper, and Les Binks on drums from the 70s did some great work with us, in Judas Priest, and he's a great drummer. But unfortunately, when it came to putting the album down, Les sustained an injury in his wrist and couldn't really play for hours on end. So he was unable to make the journey with us. So we gave Sean Elk from San Diego, who had been playing with Ripper in the Three Tremors around the world. We checked his videos out, and I said, Tim, we've got to give this guy a call. He's amazing, and he truly is. And our bass player, he's a wonderful bass player. He's great. Obviously, Tony Newton. You know, Tony's been around and done a lot of things. He started the album Voodoo 6 with Richie Faulkner, no less, all of those years ago. And so Tony does a lot of things. He records Iron Maiden, records a lot of their material and works a lot, you know, with the guys in their studio. And so it was great to have Tony on board, because Tony's got a lot of strings to his bow, but the main strings that I was interested in, obviously, are on the bass guitar, and he's a demon. So the band's a great band. You know, there's some videos out there now. I think there's 3 videos already out, and there's a 4th one coming soon. So people are able to get a good taste of what the band will appear to be like live.
Great. I think the fact that there's so many intertwining relationships through rock and roll is what kind of keeps the spirit alive. And because then it doesn't make age such a factor. It means, look, you can be playing with someone half your age, but you still have the same influence. And especially if those influences happen to be you are able to really, you know, cross-pollinate and make this type of music.
It's exactly that, and it's great to have some younger blood and have people that really want to play this music and they're passionate about the music. As we touched on before, Ryan, about, you know, keeping it all alive. You know, like I say, sadly, we're losing friends along the way, and it's more likely to accelerate than decelerate. You know, so the time will come, and we don't want this beloved music of ours to be just a page in a history book in 30 or 40 years, or whenever it might be. Sooner or later, we want to inspire some young and older musicians, you know, to get on board and as the lyrics go in the song Sermons of the Sinner, you know, hopefully these sermons, you know, they can help us rise again. And so, you know, so if we can continue to make songs like this and albums like this, you know, we have a new Iron Maiden album coming, we have a new Scorpions album coming, so there's lots of good things as well, you know. It's just unfortunate that sometimes you hear people say, oh yeah, you know, that music, it's been done, you know, that's only for the people that were there at the time. And it's sad to hear that, you know, because it's certainly not the case. You know, there's plenty of music and songs to be written and sung yet, you know.
I think you're doing it exactly right. I consider you, and this is not a disparaging term at all, your group is like the wise elders, that like the Yodas of rock and roll, if you will, that are going to pass on all this information, this spirit, to the younger generation. I think the best way that you're doing it is releasing new albums and new material like Sermons of the Sinner, because there's no way that you don't let that Ripper rip on this album. I listened to the first single this morning on YouTube, and I mean, did you push him to go to the octaves level double Z?
No, Ripper knows what I like. You know, I've always been a big fan of the higher register ever since Deep Purple in Rock in 1970, I think it was. You know, I got that album and I'm thinking, this is the type of singer, you know, because Ian Gillan back then, you know, he was pretty special and pretty groundbreaking. You know, a lot came after that, you know. But yeah, there's very few guys in the world that can do, you know, what's required really in a band like this, you know. And Ripper's definitely, you know, at the top of Everest when it comes to this style of vocal, for sure.
Definitely the top of his range. Top of my range, like on a really good day. The thing is about, you know, moving from vocals to guitar, which is sort of what I like to talk about as well. That signature sound that you've obviously helped establish throughout the years, that twin guitar sound you're known for is like a successful formula. Do you think that that's a successful formula that won't ever lose appeal on a good metal album? And
yeah, I think because when I first started, I mean, it was pure by accident that Ben was invited to join the band, because after many years, we actually got a record deal as a four-piece, and I was the only songwriter and guitar player. But the record company says, we've so many bands have been signed as a four-piece. There's Led Zeppelin, there's Black Sabbath, there's Free, and a lot of other bands. How about you guys have a saxophone player? Well, I nearly went out and I jumped off a cliff. I'm going, no way. Keyboard player, no way. But I was kind of interested to have another guitar player, because I'd heard bands with two guitar players, but they were all a lot more melodic, and a lot of the bands were kind of from the West Coast in the States, with the Grateful Dead and the James Gunn, Dickie Betts, and different guys, but in England we had a band called Wishbone Ash, because even back then, Thin Lizzy was still a one guitar player band, because we played a lot of shows with Thin Lizzy as a three-piece, with Eric Bell as the guitar player, from Whiskey in the Jar. So this is the history, guys. We'll have to get back.
I love it. Let's go. Well, you're part of that history, man. That's the thing. A lot of people might not realize it is now currently for you, KK. It's KK's Priest. But you were around since 1969, folks. You were the one guy that made it. That I think Vic, our producer, put up a picture of an earlier lineup. You're still that guy. You're still, you were there all throughout. And then it took a little while until you said that those bigger records started happening, but you stuck it through. And a lot of people might not even know that the name of the band was written or was named after a Bob Dylan song, right?
Yeah.
And
it was, the song Frankie Lane and Judas Priest, all of those years ago. And like I say, I tell the story. I was just a teenager, probably 17, and I saw this van, an old van, going on the estate where I lived, and it had in spray paint Judas Priest, and a long-haired guy was at the wheel like this, and I'm thinking, shit, I want to be in that band, I want to be in that van, I want to go where they're going, And I actually went for an audition for that band. And it's a very tragic story, because the blues band before that, the guitar player, unfortunately, the story goes, committed suicide at the young age of 18. He was just 18, And so the guys were looking to form a new band, and they needed a guitar player. And I auditioned for Judas Priest, that was going to be the name of the band. But they were looking for a blues player, which I wasn't, because I was already into Hendrix and the Cream and long improvised solos and stuff like that, And so I didn't get the job. So they formed Judas Priest with a guy called Ernie Chataway, who was a very good guitar player, who was a bit older than me and more experienced. And they went on the road for a year, and then it all fell apart. And then by then, a year later, I was rehearsing with Ian and our drummer, John Ellis, because we didn't have a singer. And the singer from the original Judas Priest, Al Atkins, came into the rehearsal rooms, and he says, "You guys looking for a singer?" And I went, "Hell yes, we are." And I'm thinking, is this my way into Judas Priest?
Can we borrow the name? Can we borrow the name as well?
So we went straight up to the pub, which was next to the rehearsal rooms. This is true. And we sat there, and I was really playing it cool, because I knew the subject would come up. I was so excited, because we're a band. We had a singer, and Al was good. He had a good stage presence, and he was good. And so I was so happy. And we came onto the subject about the band's name, and I was going, oh yeah, it's tough to think of original stuff these days. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, Al, what about Judas Priest, playing it really cool, thinking, say yes, you bastard, or I'm going to, it's say yes, Al, please, agree to it. And he went, oh, yeah, okay. Well, if you think it's a cool name, I'll go, let's do it.
Well played, KK. Well played. You played your hand exactly right. You timed it, you did it, and all of a sudden, now whatever happened to the van?
And obviously, we went on successfully. We did a lot of shows. We were very busy. We never made money, but we were playing a lot of shows, and we were doing this nondescript music that myself and Al was writing, really, songs that would become Victim of Changes and, and Cheater and stuff like that, and we only played our own material. We played a couple of obscure covers,
right.
But we didn't want to play covers. We played a couple of covers by a band called Quatermass, and they didn't have a guitar player. They were just a three-piece with a keyboard, And so, but we wanted to play our own original music, and it was all about being original then. But what the music we were playing was to become heavy metal, but we didn't know that at the time. But I was definitely on that road, because anything blues had to go. It had to be this music that was riff orientated,
Right.
and that was in my mind to do.
I think everybody that's the hardcore purist, they know what eventually happened with the band and the evolution of it, what happened. My initial question was the van that you saw driving across, it said Judas Priest spray painted. Whatever happened to that van? Were you able to tour in that?
No, that went. I think that went with the roadie, because the roadie that was driving it was a guy called John Ward, and he was from the same town, and he went on to be a road manager of Deep Purple and stuff like that. He was very successful, and I haven't seen him for many years, but I hope he's well and doing good.
Yeah, and if you have that van, that a little bit of inspiration, because you saw it driving by your estate and you said, yeah, I'm going to be in that. I'm going to be in that van. I'm going to be in that band. And then there it was. I love it.
Yeah. So the metal gods were looking down upon me. But you see, I heard this music because when I was young, like 13, 12, 13, my sisters were listening to Elvis and the Beatles and all that stuff. But there was no music for me, and which was sad. Didn't seem to be a music that was befitting of like white working class kids like myself. Right. We were also suffering like oppression, at school and in the family, and we were going through the rigors of all of that. Exactly, my hometown, West Bromwich, and that's Queen Street down there, and down there there's a cafe which is really quite famous called the Casa Bamboo, and all the musicians used to hang about in there, even before I was in the band, and Robert.
Is that pub that you were talking about? Is it right around the corner from there, Vic?
This is a cafe, So Robert Plant, obviously, he married a girl from this town, Maureen, his wife. So you'd see Robert and his brother, who was in a band called Possessed. That's a tragic story. I won't go there. But Maureen's brothers, Bruce and they used to hang about in. It's quite an infamous place that you would go. You got no money, but you'd sit there all day, drinking a coffee, just talking about music. It was a hangout,
Playing music, hanging out, writing songs back in those days. You're writing songs obviously as a group. And I'm going to bring it full circle up until today. And the new album, Sermons of the Sinner, that you just completed, is coming out right now, folks. If you'd like, we are hanging out with KK Downing. Again, if you're listening to us on one of those audio broadcast formulas, what are you doing? Come on over to our YouTube official channel and check out the man himself, KK Downing, from KK's Priest. But talking about songwriting as opposed from them to today. Like perhaps the Yngwie Malmsteen approach, where he insists on doing very tight control and having everything sort of done his way for the end product. Do you tend to have that same sort of thing? I want it my way, the highway, or do you work with like a team and let the chemistry unfold and as you did like in Priest?
Yeah, obviously, in the very early days, it was just myself and Al Atkins. We would sit down as a team and write stuff. And we were pretty prolific, really. We thought what we were doing was really good.
It was, trust me.
Obviously, that last year, Rob was in the band, so myself and Rob would write stuff. And we did a lot of gigs, as a 4-piece with Rob. We we did well. We went overseas and stuff, but then, going back to the idea of having another guitar player, I had this idea that it seemed to make sense to have 2 guitar players, because what happened was most bands were steering away from that, because usually you had a lead player and a rhythm player like Cliff Richard and the Shadows, whatever. But so I'm thinking, well, what if we both lead players? That adds a lot of strength. So when I solo, there's a rhythm chunking away we can do. And I had this idea of doing like what I determined then as like, not, because every time you obviously you create harmonies, it sounds a bit more melodic and a bit more kind of poppy and commercial. So I had this idea to do heavy harmonies, which is, doesn't really exist. But myself and Glenn, we would sit down and we would do obscure. We wouldn't go to the textbook to create these harmonies, And so we did some things.
It wasn't your normal. Oh, you play the, I'll play the root and you play the third, or you play the fifth. You went like
it wasn't
trial and error.
Yeah. It wasn't, parallel or like you said, third above, third below. It wasn't that. We just were listening to and we created some pretty unique stuff. Hard to kind of remember because there was no kind of set formula. We just had to. This is the days before we had little recording machines. Do you remember that? When we would sit down to write a song, we had to play it until we fell asleep so we could wake up the next day and remember what we did the day before. We didn't have a way to record that. And, it wasn't until about a year ago I had an interview in England with Robert Plant saying exactly that. And I'm thinking, do you know what? I'd forgotten all about that. We weren't able to record our ideas. We just used to have to store them in our memory banks. And if we forgot them, we would hope that somebody else in the band would remember, what we were playing and how it went.
Perhaps some of those dual, those harmony lines were different when you wrote them from then the time that you recorded them, because it eventually it was a process.
Yeah, that would definitely would change. We just had to, sometimes you forget what you did originally. You just have to start again. And so we didn't have recording apparatus, weirdly enough.
The thing is, you and Glenn were 2 of the pioneers of a band that came out that had 2 proper lead players with 2 distinct styles. I remember that for sure coming out like, okay.
And going back to what you said as a question, lots of things came then and followed on as being synonymous with heavy rock and heavy metal. And that was the twin guitar. Flying V's definitely is a staple guitar now for a metal band, has been for a long time. And
do you think maybe I mean, I don't want to pat you on the back too much, but I'm going to definitely give you credit where credit's due. I think you're kind of responsible for elevating the Flying V to being the quintessential heavy metal guitar.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who else? I mean, I know Schenker, but Schenker was after you, right? Michael Schenker.
Yeah, the Scorpions guys, they were there at the very beginning, because the 1967 Flying V, they only made 111 of them, and Jimi Hendrix had one, Mark Bolan had one, Andy Powell from Wishbone Ash had one. One of the guys in the Kinks had one, Dave Davis. So they went around.
So we're down to about 105 left. So which one did you? When did you get your first Flying V?
they were very rare. They were really rare and hard to come by. So I saw mine in a shop in Birmingham, and
Was it in the window?
Yes, it was. It
That's
was.
what they were made for. In 1958, they were made to be put in the windows.
I'm thinking, Jesus, it's in the window and it's for sale. I've got to have it. And it was £500.
Holy
You
shit,
know,
that's a
I'm thinking,
lot.
I don't have that sort of money. How can I get it? So I had to trade in my SG for it, you know, which was heartbreaking. But the story goes because I went in and bought the guitar, you know, the next day, and Michael Schenkel will tell you the story. He came up to Birmingham to buy that guitar, but I went in and bought it early that day, and he never lets me forget it. He always say, "Oh, KK, you'll have my guitar," and I'm going, "No, Michael, it's mine," because I think UFO came up and they played a gig, and it was on a Sunday, and it was closed. I think it was on the weekend. The shop was closed, but Michael saw the guitar as well, and he came up to buy it on the train, and it had gone. I went in there and
Now,
bought the guitar.
is this at the time where you're still in a one guitar player band? Or was this by the time had Glenn started playing with you? Because I wonder if that was ever a thing like, okay, you're going to play the V, I'm going to play this style of guitar.
Well, I wanted to flying V because back then there was obviously there was a very limited edition in 1958 that you couldn't find them anywhere. 1967, you couldn't find them anywhere. That's the one with the more pointed headstock, you know, but I found one, which was unbelievable. And then after that, they did a run of 500 in 1970 to 71, but they were hard to find as well, you know. So, but yeah, I think Glenn was in the band by the time I got my first V. But as soon as I saw it, this is the guitar that suits the style of music that I'm playing. Gotta have it. It was odd, and people thought that they were odd, and people thought that they were kind of a gimmick, you know. But to me, it was the be all and the end all, you know. Flying V.
I love the fact that we're kind of going off on little tangents here, because in the trenches you can do a lot of things. You know, we don't have to stick to a format, but at this point, I think it's a good time, because we do have a section of the show called The One That Got Away, and because we're talking about these classic iconic guitars, and you are sort of the godfather of the Flying V, bringing it into heavy metal prominence. We have a little section of the show called The One That Got Away. I think it's time to run that right now, Vic. Why don't you do that? Hello, folks. We are hanging out with KK Downing of KK's Priest. But check this out. This question for you, because it's a perfect segue. We've been talking about guitars, and The One That Got Away is basically about a piece of gear, maybe an instrument, maybe an amplifier, that at one point in your career was lost, stolen, or you had to sell it for whatever reason, but you wish you had that guitar or amp or whatever. It could be a chorus unit. I don't care. KK Downing, what is the one that got away for you?
Well, I think what happened to me, obviously when I was very young, people know that I was a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, and I was, you know, and when the band split up, Noel Redding formed a band called Fat Mattress, you know, and Noel was playing guitar, and the band played at a club called Mother's in Erdington. I might have the police come round after this, but
you know, you're good. No, I think so, the statute of limitations has run out, so you're safe telling this story. Let's hear it.
So what happened was, backtracking, I saw Jimi Hendrix at both shows at the Royal Albert Hall, you know, and in '68, I think that was. So I was there, and I got in for the sound check, and the roadie came on stage, and he emptied a big box of Crybaby wah pedals, and he emptied a big box of Dallas Arbiter fuzz faces, the round one, you know.
I remember those fuzz faces. Yeah. We had the face looking at Vic. Do you have a picture of that right now? No, our producer says no, he doesn't.
A fuzz face, it looked like face. And so what happened was, and Noel was playing, and I was right at the front because the stage was only 6 inches high, it was at a club. And I looked down and I saw this red fuzz face, and I'm thinking, that has got to be one of Jimmy's. That's got to be one of Jimmy's. And I'm thinking, I'm going to steal this. I'm going to
nicked it. You nicked
and
it.
My eyes were glued to this, So after the show was over, they were packing up, the bags were turned, whatever. I had to have it, didn't I? I was possessed by the metal gods. And so I had it, and I took it into this back room, and I hid it into this old upright piano in the back, like that. Isn't this naughty? This is bad. This is bad. Don't do this.
All the things that, everything that KK is doing right now with passing the torch of rock and roll, making a new album. Yes, do that. Learn guitar, but stealing kids, nicking, if you call it.
I was just a impoverished teenager. I thought, I've got to have this fuzz pedal. I've got to have it, and
you took it. You got it. How did you plan the exit though? There it is. Was that the one?
That's the one. How beautiful is that? So if you can find an original one of those, they're worth a lot of money these days. But anyway,
I think you can find one in a grand piano somewhere in UK.
I hid it in the back of this upright piano, and I went back and got it for the next week, and I got it, and I got it, and I kept it. And I played with it, and it was wonderful, but it didn't last very long because somebody stole it from me.
It's the never-ending, the gift that keeps on. It's like herpes. It just passed itself on to another owner. Oh my God, that fuzz face just kept going.
I think that bastard who stole that off me, he doesn't even know it was Jimi Hendrix's, and he doesn't even know. I'm thinking what he's got, and I probably cried for a year, But anyway, that is what do you call it, karma.
So, a little bit. You know who I think it was? KK. I think Michael Schenker. I think Michael Schenker stole your fuzz face. I'm going to just put it out there right now. I think because you got his Flying V, the very original, he got his revenge by taking Jimi Hendrix's fuzz face. So,
back in the day, guys, it was tough. It was hard going, But like I say, I was so obsessed, and but that's what happened,
Is that the only thing? Is that the only thing you shoplifted? Or you didn't even shoplifted. You didn't. You outright stole that because it was at a show. But you said he had a box of them, so he didn't probably miss it that much.
No, well, obviously this was later. Obviously, when the band was formed, so. But I felt sure. So, and I wish. It's sad that Noel's not around. I'd love to ask him, to confirm that. But anyway, that's a rock and roll story, guys.
It is, man.
We
the
went
case of the missing fuzz face.
We struggled a lot. It was hard to keep afloat. For many years. It was tough going. I had my first old banger of a car when I was 27 years old. And I was quite successful as a musician. We had albums out, but it was tough. But so you just got to grind it out. You've got to, young musicians out there, stick at it, and you'll get there in the end. So all of this history, and we've talked about quite a lot. We've covered quite a lot, but it's quite interesting about the evolution of this very special music, And
no doubt. And I want to talk about that evolution. Of course, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some old stuff. Again, I'm the older days with Judas Priest, but I also want to talk about this new evolution with KK's Priest and the new album that you are just putting out right now called Sermons of the Sinner. Perhaps there's a sermon about not stealing, and then you can include the fuzz face story in that in the next album, of course. But
I'm definitely a sinner,
but you've put some years of music a little on pause. I have no doubts that you've been playing your ass off in between, but you have releasing stuff out on pause. Do you intend now to sort of launch a second career with KK's Priest, and can fans hope for a series of albums in the coming years, or is Sermons of the Sinner, is that this is what I'm giving you, or do you have a plan?
Yeah. There's already material there for a second album, so we just need to, obviously we're busy promoting and that, but if we have to wait till we go on tour again, as I said, we had shows booked this year and last year. We had some nice gigs booked, but that didn't happen, so we'll see what happens next year. Obviously any gigs that come along, we'll take priority if we can get some tours, and I'm sure that we will. I'll take priority, but maybe during the winter months, another album. And I would like to release another album next year and release 2 albums in 1 year. That is definitely a goal that I'm looking at.
It's like the olden days. That would be almost like the olden days, huh?
78, 79, I think we released 2 albums in 1 year. That would be, that's definitely on the cards for sure. Exactly.
Love it. Well, you know what? We're talking about the new, talking about the old. We're going to take a very quick break right now from one of our sponsors. And I think we will go with our headphone sponsor that we have, Beyerdynamic, because you're listening to me through the Beyerdynamic microphone. I don't know what you're speaking through right now, but you sound very lovely, KK Downing. We will come back with a part 2 coming up right after this. Come on, Vic. Hello, folks. Roxie here. Hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. I'm very excited today to announce our newest sponsor, Beyerdynamic. They produce some of the industry's very best quality microphones and headphones, and that's why they're the perfect fit right here in the trenches. You're hearing my voice today through the great TG V70 microphone. This mic is perfect for any home studio, plus I get to use it on stage. I have paired the mic with the legendary Beyerdynamic studio headphones, and they're called the DT770 Pros. These are amazing for analytical listening, truly the most authentic sound experience I've ever had. So whether it's listening to a podcast or one of your favorite albums, I definitely recommend these. Treat yourself right with Beyerdynamic gear, the gold standard in high fidelity. Now, let's get back to the podcast. All right, we are back, and we are actually, like I said, I'm trying to run things on a quick ship. Sometimes we just start talking, but I know you got things to do today. So I'm going to get you getting all the important business out of there right now. Obviously, the new album. And a lot of these stories you're hearing, folks, you might not read them in your autobiography, Heavy Duty Days and Nights in Judas Priest, because I don't think you included the Fuzzface theft story in that album, in that book. But what other stories did you not include in the book that you?
There's an awful lot. I couldn't go into detail about everything, Roxie, because Brian, because
that's cool.
The book would have been this thick, I think. So I left some things out, the theft and some things, but I did an awful lot of things, growing up, and maybe there's another book there,
Did you protect some people? And did you protect some people, and then just because you wanted to, be a good guy and not give all the salacious details to certain things?
Probably. You have to think twice when you actually, agree to write a book. Otherwise you could definitely end up with the handcuffs on. The Fuzzface handcuffs.
No, dude, the Fuzzface story is gone. You're not gonna get busted anymore. I'm telling you, the statute of limitations is done. The funny thing is, that it's sitting in somebody's either music collection, or it's sitting in some sort of music store going, we have no idea. It's just an old piece of gear.
There's probably a population in England of like Fuzzface thieves, and I'm one of them. and it's probably one of those things. It's like,
let's start a search for it. Let's try and find it. Find KK's Fuzzface, all right, which is not really KK's Fuzzface. It was somebody else's, but you know what? We'll call it yours.
That is so beautiful. It brings back such treasured memories. But
somewhere in the UK, that's what we could say. And you know what? We can start with the UK because you've been in the UK this whole time. for the most part. I mean, did you ever spend any time like most English rockers go, I'm getting out, I'm going to the sun. I want to live in LA. I want to live in New York. Like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I'm very lucky because we would go on a world tour, and pretty much wherever we finished, we would just maybe stay there. So I was in myself and Glenn stayed in Hawaii for about 6 months after one world tour. We were supposed to be songwriting, but we didn't. We were out on the golf course and fishing and doing other things, you know. But you know, in Spain, we spent a lot of time in Spain, Florida, Arizona. So yeah, lots of cherished memories, you know, hanging out with our friends.
but main home has always been the UK, right?
Yeah.
What do you think has held you in the UK for most of your life? What is it?
I guess, well, obviously family connections and stuff like that, you know, things hold you down. But I do consider the good thing is it's just a base anyway, Ryan, isn't it really for yourself as well? Because you know how often, okay, COVID's here now, but we were always jumping on a plane and going here, there, and everywhere, weren't we? You know,
You need to feel like you have
well,
a
and the
foundation.
world becomes at home, and all the people in all the countries, where Argentina, Mexico, Chile, you know, Spain, Italy, Germany, all of these people and fans become our friends, and you know, and the world becomes as a musician, because music to me always has been, you know, the one common denominator. Call it a religion or a language, whatever you
It's the
will,
unifier. It's the great unifier.
brings everybody together. So we
Yep.
are as one. When we go on stage, the audience, wherever you are, is the same because people are the same. You know,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have to realize that, you
How
know,
can we convince politicians of that, or how can we convince media of that? That when you
you know,
just come to a KK's Priest show, just come to an Alice Cooper show, and you'll see that no matter what the diversity, everybody can be united at some point.
I mean, I haven't played in China yet, but I've been to obviously Russia, you know, Eastern Bloc countries, Korea, lots of places, you know, and you know, it's all the same. You know, let's face it, in every race, there's the good, bad, and the ugly, you know, and fortunately, the ugly are the minority. Um, but you know, when it comes to music, Ryan, we've seen our fans in so many different countries, and everybody's the same. Everybody wants to enjoy themselves. Everybody wants to be good people, and you know, and like we say, the music and the bands, you know, when we get together, it's the same. People always ask us, don't they? You know, where's the best audience in the world? It's how do you answer that? You know,
It's a tough one. Yeah. Yeah.
people are consistent.
That being said, KK, who's the best audience? No, I'm not going to ask that question. But being that you do have like appeal to so many people from so many different countries, you're always very active, and the interviews online, like metal news outlets such as Brave Words and Blabbermouth, they pick up on more KK Downing updates than any other artist. I don't know if you knew that, but they're always picking up your stories. Maybe it's for that little salacious soundbite, or maybe it's just for that little tidbit of information, you know, of someone that's been through it all. Well, you know, one of the pioneers of metal, to, you know, sort of.
Yeah.
But why do you think that is? What does that appeal?
Well, I think that the fact that I think, albeit my downfall, when I actually do interviews and everything, and whatever I do, everything's from the heart, and it's truthful, and that can get you into a lot of trouble, as opposed to somebody that is very self-guarding and careful what they say, and is very picky about what subjects and where they go. You know, I'm very open, and like I say, if it gets me into trouble, it does. But you know, I can only speak from the heart, and say what I know to be accurate and true. And,
Yeah.
and for that reason, I think it is sometimes, you know, people can, you know, bend a headline out of things that were meant to be very genuine and for the good, you know, of things. But so it can happen, you know.
I appreciate you being as open and honest as you have with us today, admitting that you're a thief. And but honestly, all the stories, bringing all these stories to the forefront, that, you know, of these early days, all the way the evolution of Priest, all the way up to the evolution of KK's Priest. We all look forward to this new record that is coming out, and that is Sermons of the Sinner. I just want to say one more thing, because I'd love to have you back on when we have a little bit more time. I really appreciate you taking the time today to do this. If anyone has not, you know, found out and gone down that KK rabbit hole, don't go down the K hole, go down the KK Downing rabbit hole. The information to get in touch with you, I see it for those of you listening on the audio broadcast, is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at KK's Priest. And then your main website is what?
KKspriest.com.
There it is. So, I mean, we've heard a lot of amazing stories and words. We'll get more next time you come on. Maybe somewhere down the road, KK's Priest and Alice meet up for another show, and we end up on a T-shirt like you have on at one point. And perhaps we'll meet on the golf course someday soon again, because we both share the love of golf, right?
That would be fantastic. As I said before, you know, golf, tennis, whatever. You know, it's good to find that. You know, when.
There he is. And there he froze just a little bit.
And you get to see some of the beautiful places you get to visit, and meet a lot of nice people, you know. And it's great to have a nice cold beer after a hot, sweaty round of golf. It's like a lot of fun to a lot of people, but trust me, it's good.
It is. It is. I'm trying to convince some people of that right now. That's a great picture. Have you ever played around with the coupe?
No, but Glenn did. I know, because Alice used to get up very, very early in the morning and play.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't your jam. That was not your jam.
That was not me, you know. I mean, you know,
but you know what? Next time we're out there, I'm going to take you out. We'll get up at a decent hour. We'll play 18 and we'll have a good time. I look forward to that, and we'll have you on the podcast again.
Absolutely. Golf is difficult enough when you're awake, let alone when you're asleep. So that's my excuse.
You've given us some great stories. Any parting sort of words of wisdom from one of the more influential metalheads of our time? Any words that you can give our audience that you live by?
Yeah, I'd just like to say to everyone, thank you so much for being, you know, with us on this journey. For me, it's been like 50 years. You know, wherever you got on, you know, thank you for your support, and thank you for your patience through this time we're going through with the pandemic. But we're going to come out of it, and we're going to see you out there on tour and KK's Priest. We're really looking forward to playing some killer shows for you. And yeah, I'd like everyone to check out the record. It's honest. It's what I do naturally. You know, the whole record came about really quite easy for me to do. And I really hope everybody likes the songs and everything about this classic and true metal album. And let's keep this music alive and going for as long as we possibly can.
Thank you very much, KK Downing. We really appreciate you being in the trenches. And next week, we will start putting up our guests right now. That's right. Next week's guest is going to be Dennis D. Young from Styx and now on his own. That's Dennis D. Young. Make sure you check it out. There you go, Vic. And you have been watching KK Downing from KK's Priest. And he has another, former band that you might have heard of as well. But of course, all these stories and more, you can check out the rebroadcast of In the Trenches, all on our Ryan Roxie official YouTube channel. KK Downing, it's been a pleasure having you on In the Trenches. We'll see you, man.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll see you on the road, buddy.
Until next time, folks, enjoy the ride.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.